Welcome everyone. Today we will learn about a man who looked up at the night sky and saw things no human had ever seen before. His name was Galileo Galilei, and his story is about courage, curiosity, and the price of truth. On February 15, 1564, in the beautiful Italian city of Pisa, a baby boy was born into a family of musicians. His father, Vincenzo Galilei, was a talented lute player and music teacher. Nobody knew that this child would one day change how humans understand the universe. Young Galileo grew up in a house filled with music and mathematics. His father taught him that sometimes you must question what everyone believes to find the truth. This lesson would shape Galileo's entire life. As a boy, he was curious about everything: why things fell, how pendulums swung, why the stars moved across the sky. In 1581, at the age of 17, Galileo entered the University of Pisa to study medicine. His father wanted him to become a doctor because doctors earned good money. But Galileo's heart was not in medicine. During a church service one day, he watched a lamp swinging from the ceiling and became fascinated by its regular movement. He began to study mathematics secretly, attending lectures without his father's permission. The young student was more interested in numbers and geometry than in healing sick people. Eventually, he left university without finishing his medical degree. His father was disappointed, but Galileo knew he had found his true passion. The years that followed were difficult. Galileo struggled to find work and support himself. He gave private mathematics lessons to students in Florence and Siena. The money was not good, and sometimes he barely had enough to eat. But he never stopped studying, never stopped asking questions. In 1589, at age 25, Galileo finally got his first real job as a mathematics professor at the University of Pisa. He earned only 60 florins per year, much less than other professors. But now he could do what he loved: teach and conduct experiments. It was during this time that he began to challenge the ideas of Aristotle, the ancient Greek philosopher whose teachings dominated European universities. Aristotle had taught that heavy objects fall faster than light objects. Everyone believed this for nearly 2,000 years. But Galileo questioned it. According to legend, he dropped 2 balls of different weights from the Leaning Tower of Pisa. They hit the ground at the same time. The old belief was wrong. This experiment made Galileo unpopular with other professors. They did not like a young teacher challenging ancient wisdom. In 1592, Galileo had to leave Pisa. He moved to Padua, where the University of Padua offered him a better position teaching geometry and astronomy. He would spend the next 18 years there, the happiest and most productive years of his life. In Padua, Galileo's genius truly began to shine. He invented a geometric and military compass that helped soldiers aim cannons and helped merchants calculate prices. He sold these compasses and gave lessons on how to use them. Finally, he was earning enough money to live comfortably and support his family. But everything changed in 1609. That year, Galileo heard about a new invention from the Netherlands: a tube with lenses that could make distant objects appear closer. We call it a telescope today. Galileo had never seen one, but from the description alone, he built his own version. Then he made it better, much better. While the Dutch telescope could magnify objects only 3 times, Galileo's telescope could magnify them 20 times and later even 30 times. On a clear night in January 1610, in the city of Padua, Galileo pointed his improved telescope at the sky. What he saw would change human history forever. He looked at the moon and saw mountains and valleys. The moon was not a perfect, smooth sphere as everyone believed, it was a world with features like Earth. He looked at Jupiter and discovered 4 small lights moving around it. These were moons, worlds orbiting another planet. This was shocking because it proved that not everything in the sky revolved around Earth. Galileo wrote about his discoveries in a book called Sidereus Nuncius, or Starry Messenger, published in March 1610. The book became an instant sensation across Europe. Suddenly, this mathematics professor from Padua was famous. The Grand Duke of Tuscany invited him to return to Florence as the chief mathematician and philosopher. Galileo accepted, leaving Padua behind. But fame brought danger. Galileo's discoveries supported the theory of Nicholas Copernicus, a Polish astronomer who had died decades earlier. Copernicus had claimed that the Earth moved around the Sun, not the other way around. This idea contradicted what the Catholic Church taught. The Church believed that Earth was the center of God's creation, fixed and unmoving. At first, Galileo was careful. He presented his findings as interesting observations, not as proof that the Church was wrong. But as he gathered more evidence, he became bolder. He saw the phases of Venus, which could only be explained if Venus orbited the Sun. He observed sunspots, proving that even the Sun was not perfect and unchanging as Church doctrine claimed. In 1616, the Catholic Church officially declared that the Copernican theory was false and absurd. Church officials warned Galileo not to teach or defend the idea that Earth moved around the Sun. For several years, Galileo remained mostly silent. He was now in his 50s, and he knew the power of the Church. Speaking against it could cost him everything. But Galileo could not stay silent forever. In 1623, his friend Cardinal Maffeo Barberini became Pope Urban VIII. Galileo hoped that this educated, cultured pope would be more open to new scientific ideas. He was wrong. In 1632, Galileo published his greatest work, Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems. The book compared the Copernican system with the old Earth-centered system. Galileo wrote the book as a conversation between 3 characters. He tried to present both sides fairly, but it was clear which side he believed was true. The book made the Earth-centered view look foolish. Pope Urban VIII felt betrayed and insulted. He believed Galileo had made him look like a fool. The Pope ordered Galileo to come to Rome to face the Inquisition. In 1633, at the age of 69, sick and exhausted, Galileo traveled to Rome. The Inquisition accused him of heresy, teaching ideas that went against Church doctrine. The trial was not about science. It was about power and obedience. Galileo knew that other people had been burned at the stake for heresy. Giordano Bruno, who had also supported Copernican ideas, had been executed in 1600. Facing the threat of torture and death, Galileo made a difficult choice. On June 22, 1633, kneeling before the Inquisition, he read a statement denying his own discoveries. He said he had been wrong to suggest that Earth moved around the Sun. He declared that Earth was motionless at the center of the universe. It was a lie, and everyone in that room knew it. Legend says that after his forced confession, Galileo muttered under his breath, "And yet it moves," referring to the Earth. Whether he actually said these words, we do not know. But they capture his spirit perfectly. The truth remained true, whether people accepted it or not. The Inquisition sentenced Galileo to house arrest for the rest of his life. He returned to his villa in Arcetri, near Florence, and was forbidden to leave or receive visitors without permission. His beloved daughter, Sister Maria Celeste, who lived in a nearby convent, had been his greatest support. Tragically, she died just a few months after his trial. Galileo was heartbroken. Despite everything, the trial, the house arrest, the loss of his daughter, Galileo did not stop working. Even as his health failed and his eyesight grew weak, he continued to think and write. In 1638, now completely blind, he published his final book, Discourses and Mathematical Demonstrations relating to two new sciences. This book laid the foundations for the modern science of physics. Galileo once said, "All truths are easy to understand once they are discovered, the point is to discover them." His life proved this statement. He discovered truths about the universe that seemed obvious once revealed, but which required tremendous courage to pursue. He paid a heavy price for his honesty. On January 8, 1642, Galileo Galilei died in his villa in Arcetri. He was 77 years old. The church refused to allow him a proper funeral monument. His body was quietly buried in a small room in the Basilica of Santa Croce in Florence. The world had not yet fully recognized what it had lost. But time proved Galileo right. His telescope revealed the true nature of the heavens. His experiments established the scientific method, the idea that we should test our beliefs through careful observation and experimentation. Every scientist who came after him walked the path he had opened. Sir Isaac Newton, born the same year Galileo died, built his theory of gravity on Galileo's work. Albert Einstein called Galileo the father of modern science. Today, spacecraft carry his name into the cosmos he studied. In 1992, more than 350 years after his trial, the Catholic Church officially admitted it had been wrong to condemn him. What can we learn from Galileo's journey? First, that curiosity and questioning are not signs of disrespect but pathways to truth. Galileo never accepted ideas simply because they were old or because powerful people believed them. He looked for himself and trusted what he saw. Second, we learn that truth is worth pursuing even when it brings trouble. Galileo could have remained silent. He could have kept his discoveries to himself and lived a comfortable, safe life. Instead, he chose to share what he knew, even when it cost him his freedom. He understood that some things matter more than personal safety. Third, Galileo's story teaches us that setbacks and opposition do not mean we are wrong. The entire power structure of his time opposed him. Other professors mocked him. The church condemned him. But none of this changed the facts. The earth still moved around the sun. The moon still orbited Jupiter. Reality does not bend to human wishes or fears. Finally, we learn that the impact of a life is not measured by comfort or popularity but by contribution. Galileo died under house arrest, blind and broken-hearted. Yet 400 years later, we remember his name. We honor his courage. We benefit from the scientific revolution he helped to start. Galileo also said, "I do not feel obliged to believe that the same God who has endowed us with sense, reason, and intellect has intended us to forego their use." He believed that seeking truth was not rebellion against God but fulfilling the purpose for which humans were created. His faith and his science were not enemies but partners in the search for understanding. When you look up at the night sky tonight, remember Galileo. Remember the man who first saw the mountains on the moon, who discovered that we live in a universe far larger and more wonderful than anyone had imagined. Remember that one person with a telescope and the courage to use it can change the world. Galileo's telescope was a simple tube with two pieces of glass. But it became a tool of revolution because it was held by hands that dared to look and a mind that dared to question. Each of us has our own telescope, our own unique way of seeing the world and discovering truth. The question is whether we will have the courage to look through it and share what we see. The stars that Galileo studied still shine above us. The laws of nature he discovered still govern our universe. And the spirit of curiosity and courage he embodied still calls to us across the centuries. His story reminds us that the pursuit of truth is never easy, but it is always worth it. Galileo Galilei was not perfect. He could be proud and sometimes tactless. He made enemies when he could have made friends. But he was authentic. He lived for something bigger than himself. And in the end, that is what made him immortal. Not his suffering, not his fame, but his unwavering commitment to seeing the world as it truly is and helping others see it too.